After sending her sister $1,500 to save her from being homeless, Sarah asked for the money back. And what her sister did next was shocking. This isn't just a story about money. It's a story about family, trust, and a betrayal so deep it will make you question everything. Sarah thought she was doing the right thing, helping her little sister who was in deep trouble. But she was wrong. She was about to find out that the person she trusted most in the world was a complete stranger. Stay with us and make sure you subscribe because you won't believe what happens next. The bright numbers of her bank account glowed on Sarah's phone screen. She felt a wave of relief rush over her, almost making her dizzy. For the first time in years, she was finally ahead. That $1,500 bonus from work was her ticket to freedom. It was the exact amount she needed to pay off her last credit card. She could already feel the heavy weight of debt lifting from her shoulders. She was 30 years old, living in a small apartment, and this money meant everything. It was her future, her fresh start, all sitting in that account. She was just about to hit the make payment button when her phone lit up with a call. It was her younger sister, Jess. Sarah smiled, but the smile faded when she heard the sound on the other end. It wasn't a hello. It was a sob. A desperate, terrified cry that made Sarah's heart stop. Just minutes earlier, Sarah had been planning her debt-free party. Now, she was listening to something that would change her life forever. "Sarah, please, you have to help me," Jess cried, her voice cracking with panic. "I'm going to be homeless." Jess's story tumbled out in a rush of tears and panic. Her roommate had suddenly moved out in the middle of the night, stealing her half of the rent money. Now, the entire $1,500 was due by 5 p.m., or the landlord was going to evict her. "He's already posted the notice, Sarah." "He's not kidding," Jess wailed. "I have nowhere to go. I'll be on the street." The story was dramatic, full of details about a mean landlord and a backstabbing friend. It was an emergency, a financial fire that needed to be put out right now. Sarah had been working on her finances for 2 years. She had rules. Her therapist helped her set them. The cardinal rule was, never ever lend money you can't afford to lose. And she could not afford to lose this. This was her credit card money, her escape hatch. She knew Jess. Jess was always in some kind of trouble, always needing a few dollars, always forgetting to pay it back. But this felt different. This wasn't about a forgotten lunch bill. This was about her sister, her own blood, being thrown out of her home. The $1,500 was for her debt. That debt was a monster that kept her awake at night. But the sound of Jess's voice was worse. Jess, no more than 24 years old, had always been the baby of the family. Sarah remembered holding her as a kid, promising to always protect her. Now Jess's terrified squeals as she described the big, scary landlord pierced right through Sarah's financial discipline. It wasn't just about money anymore. This was about family. This was about being a big sister. How could she pay off a credit card while her sister was packing bags? Without hesitation, Sarah closed her credit card app. She opened her bank app instead. Her fingers hovered over the screen. "You'll pay me back, right? As soon as you can?" Sarah asked, her voice quiet. Yes, I swear. My next paycheck in 2 weeks. I promise," Jess cried. Sarah took a deep breath, closed her eyes and hit send. She watched her bonus, her freedom, her entire $1,500, vanish from her account and fly away to her sister. She couldn't just let her sister be homeless. It was the right thing to do. Wasn't it? "I couldn't just let her get evicted," Sarah later told her best friend, trying to explain the sick feeling in her stomach. "Every instinct I had as a big sister overrode my training as a responsible adult." The moment the money was gone, Jess's sobs stopped. "Oh, thank you, Sarah. You saved my life. I love you so much." The call ended. The silence in Sarah's apartment was deafening. She looked at her credit card bill, still due, still waiting. But it was okay. Jess had promised. 2 weeks. It would all be fine. The transfer nearly cost Sarah everything. That credit card payment wasn't just a goal. It was a deadline. The 0% interest offer was ending in 3 weeks. If she didn't pay the $1,500 by then, the interest rate would jump to 29%. It would be a financial avalanche, burying her all over again. The next 2 weeks were torture. Sarah ate instant noodles for dinner, skipping her morning coffee to save every penny. She just had to hold on until Jess's paycheck came through. She trusted her sister. She had to. But something felt wrong. The 2-week mark finally arrived. Payday. Sarah sent a gentle text. "Hey Jess. Hope you're doing okay. Just checking in on that $1,500 for my bill." She watched the phone. 1 minute. 10 minutes. An hour. Nothing. She saw the read receipt. Jess had seen the message. But she didn't reply. Sarah's heart started to pound. She tried to call. The phone rang once, then went straight to voicemail. That's weird, Sarah thought. She tried again. Voicemail. A cold, heavy feeling washed over her. She opened up Instagram to send a DM. And what she saw made her blood freeze. Sarah's blood didn't just freeze. It turned to ice. It wasn't a picture of Jess packing boxes. It wasn't a sad photo of an eviction notice. It was a picture posted just 1 hour ago by one of Jess's friends. There was Jess standing on a boat. She was wearing a brand new bright yellow bikini, holding up a pink drink with a little umbrella in it. She was laughing, her head thrown back, the sun shining on her face. The caption read, "Best surprise trip ever. So glad we could make it. #boatlife #weekend vibes." Boat. Not a new apartment. Boat. Sarah's mind couldn't make sense of it. She refreshed the page. The picture was still there. She squinted. Maybe it was an old photo. No, the friend's caption said, "Today." And Jess's hair was different. It had blonde streaks she didn't have last month. This was new. This was now. How could she be on a boat when she was supposed to be homeless? How did she pay for a surprise trip? Sarah's $1,500 was for rent. It was for a mean landlord. It wasn't for this. A dark, cold realization started to creep into Sarah's mind, a question she was too scared to answer. Her fingers trembled as she took a screenshot. She went back to her text messages. The thread was still open. "Jess, what is this?" she typed. She attached the screenshot of Jess on the boat. "You told me you were being evicted." She hit send. This time she didn't just see read. She saw the 3 little dots. Jess was typing. Sarah held her breath, her heart hammering against her ribs. She was about to get the explanation. The mistake would be cleared up. Jess would explain everything. The dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. And then, nothing. The typing dots vanished. No message came through. "Jess," Sarah texted. "Are you there?" She waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. The read receipt was gone. Now her messages just said, "Delivered." They weren't even being opened. What is happening? Sarah whispered to the empty room. She went back to Instagram to send a DM. She typed in Jess's name. "User not found." She blinked. She searched again. Jess's entire profile, the one she had looked at just minutes before, was gone. A wave of nausea hit Sarah. This wasn't an accident. Jess hadn't just disappeared, she had blocked her. Sarah's hands were shaking so hard she almost dropped her phone. She tried Facebook. She typed Jess into the search bar. Her sister's profile, usually full of silly videos and selfies, was blank. "This person is unavailable." Block. She had been blocked on Instagram. She had been blocked on Facebook. And her texts were clearly not going through. Sarah had just been erased by her own sister. The $1,500 was gone. The sister she saved was gone. It was all a lie. There was no mean landlord. There was no roommate who bailed. There was no eviction. There was only a boat, a new bikini, and a pink drink. Sarah sank onto her kitchen floor, the cold tile pressing against her skin. She wasn't just out $1,500. She wasn't just going to be hit with massive credit card debt. She had been played. She had been used by her own sister. The betrayal felt like a physical punch to her stomach, knocking all the air out of her. "No," Sarah said, scrambling to her feet. "I'm not letting this happen." She still had Jess's friend's profile open. The one who posted the boat picture. Her name was Mandy. Sarah didn't know her well, but she had seen her at family parties. She found Mandy's main profile and hit the message button. "Mandy, I'm sorry to bother you, but this is an emergency. I'm Sarah, Jess's sister. I need to get in touch with her right now. It's about the $1,500. She sent the message, her heart pounding. This was it. This would work. To her surprise, Mandy replied almost instantly. But it wasn't the reply Sarah expected. "Oh my God, Sarah. I was wondering if you knew." "Knew? Knew what?" "Jess told everyone you gave her that money as a congrats gift for her promotion." Sarah's world tilted. "Promotion? What promotion?" she typed back. "Her promotion to assistant manager. That's what this boat trip is for. We all pitched in, but she paid for most of it with the bonus you sent her." A bonus. Her bonus. Jess hadn't just lied. She had created an entire fantasy. Sarah felt dizzy. "Mandy, that money wasn't a gift. It was for her rent. She told me she was being evicted." The three dots appeared again. Mandy was typing. "Evicted? What are you talking about?" "She just moved in with her boyfriend, Tom. She's been living with him for a month." A boyfriend. A new apartment. The lies were piling up so fast Sarah couldn't breathe. Then the final message from Mandy came through. "Wait. Jess is looking at my phone. Oh God, Sarah, I'm sorry." And just like that, Mandy's profile also went blank. User not found. She was blocked. Not just by her sister but by her sister's friends. Jess was actively in real time cutting her out. Sarah was alone, holding a $1,500 bill that wasn't hers. The credit card payment was due in 1 week. The interest was coming. She was completely cut off. But Jess had forgotten one thing. She had forgotten the one person she couldn't block. The one person who could end this all. Sarah picked up her phone, her hands steady now, her sadness turning into a cold, hard anger. She opened her contacts and found the name. Mom. Sarah's thumb hovered over the mom contact. This felt like a betrayal all over again, just in a different direction. Calling her mom wasn't just telling on Jess. It was lighting a match and throwing it on her entire family. She knew that once she made this call, nothing would ever be the same again. But what choice did she have? That 29% interest was a monster waiting in the dark, and Jess had locked every single door. Now, Sarah had to use the one key Jess didn't control. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. She pressed the button. The phone rang twice. "Sarah, honey. What a nice surprise." Her mom's voice was warm and cheerful like sunshine. It made Sarah's stomach twist into a knot. How could she be the one to ruin her mom's day? "Hi, Mom," Sarah started, but her voice cracked, and a sob escaped before she could stop it. The sunshine in her mom's voice vanished. "Sarah, what's wrong? You sound awful. Are you hurt? Is everyone okay?" That deep, instant worry that only a mother has was suddenly there. "Mom," Sarah whispered. "It's about Jess. Something terrible has happened." Sarah told her everything. She explained the frantic, tearful call. She told her about the $1,500 for rent, the story of the mean landlord, and the promise to pay it all back in 2 weeks. Her mom was quiet, listening. Then Sarah's voice broke as she explained the boat picture. The new bikini, cocktails, and finally the blocks. "She blocked me, Mom. On everything. She just erased me." The line was silent for a long, heavy moment. "She told you," her mom said slowly, "that she was being evicted?" The way she said the word was strange. Not just shocked, but confused, like the lie didn't make any sense. "Mom, I'm not kidding. Send me your number so I can text you the pictures," Sarah said. "Send them now," her mom replied. Her voice wasn't warm anymore. It was cold, hard, and frightening. Sarah quickly sent the screenshots. The boat party, the user not found error, the last texts from Mandy. She heard a sharp, quick breath on the other end of the line. That little. Her mom started, her voice shaking with an emotion Sarah had never heard from her before. It was pure, unfiltered rage. "Stay on the line, Sarah," her mom commanded. "I'll be right back." Sarah waited, her ear pressed so hard to the phone it hurt. She heard muffled sounds like her mom was on another phone dialing. Then she heard her mom's voice, but it wasn't for her. It was a roar. "Jessica, you pick up this phone. You pick it up right now." Sarah physically flinched. She had only heard that voice twice in her life. Once when she ran into the street as a kid, and once when their old dog got sick. It was the voice of pure panic and anger. She heard more muffled sounds, then a slam. Her mom was back on the line. "She's not answering. She's screening my calls too." Her mom's voice was dangerously calm now. "Mom, what's going on?" Sarah asked. "You sounded so weird when I said, evicted. What am I missing?" Sarah felt like she was standing in a dark room, and the lights were about to come on. Her mom let out a long, heavy sigh. "Sarah, honey, Jess borrowed $2,000 from your father and me last week." The floor dropped out from under Sarah's feet. $2,000. What was going on? What for? Sarah whispered, her mind racing. "She told us," her mom said, her voice dripping with disgust, "that her car broke down. She said she needed a whole new engine and she couldn't get to her new job. The promotion she got." It all clicked into place, a horrible, sick puzzle. The boat. The promotion. The lies. Jess hadn't just stolen from her. She was robbing her entire family. She had taken $3,500 from them in less than 2 weeks. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. She was sitting on her kitchen floor, the phone feeling cold against her ear. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Her mom cut her off. "Don't you dare apologize. You did nothing wrong. You were a good sister." Her voice was like steel. "Your father is on his way home from work. He is not going to take this well." Sarah could only imagine. Her dad was a quiet, honest man. This would destroy him. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust. It was about everything he had taught them. "What do we do?" Sarah asked. The credit card bill seemed so small now, but the 29% interest was still coming. "You," her mom said, "are going to do nothing. You are not being punished for her choices. Your father and I are sending you the $1,500 right now. You pay that bill. You are out of this. Do you understand me?" Sarah burst into tears, this time from a strange mix of relief and guilt. "But Mom, your money. The $2,000. Her mom's voice was final. "That is not your problem. That is our problem. And we are going to handle it." Just then Sarah's phone buzzed. A notification from her bank. $1,500 deposit. Her parents had already sent it. "Mom." "Thank you," Sarah cried. "We love you, Sarah. We are so sorry she did this to you. Now I have to go. Your father just pulled into the driveway. We have to find your sister." Before Sarah could even say, "I love you," the line clicked. Her mom was gone. The war had officially begun. Sarah was safe, her bill was paid, but she had no idea what her parents were about to unleash. Sarah stared at her phone. The $1,500 was safe in her account. The bank transfer notification glowed on the screen. She should have felt better. She should have felt relieved. But she felt terrible. She had paid her credit card bill, stopping the 29% interest monster from eating her alive. But she had just unleashed a different kind of monster. Her mom's voice, so cold and full of fury, was all she could hear. "We have to find your sister." Sarah had just started a family war, and she was already afraid of who would get hurt. Across town, Frank, Sarah's dad, slammed his car door. The sound echoed in the quiet garage. He walked into the house and saw his wife, Mary, standing in the kitchen. Her face was pale, and her hands were gripping the counter so hard her knuckles were white. "Mary, what is it?" he asked, his heart dropping. "You said it was an emergency. Is Sarah okay?" Mary just turned her phone around and handed it to him. He saw the screenshot of Jess on the boat. He saw the user not found. And then he read the $2,000 lie about the car. Frank was a quiet man. He was a man who went to work, paid his bills, and loved his family. He never yelled. He never got angry. But as he read the messages, Sarah's words and Jess's lies, his face slowly turned red. He didn't say a word. He just walked to the counter, picked up his own phone, and dialed Jess's number. Rang once. 3 times. Then it went straight to voicemail. "Jessica, this is your father. You will call me back. You will call me back right now." He hung up. "She's not answering," Mary whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "She's blocked us, Frank. Just like she blocked Sarah." Frank shook his head. "No, not yet. She just doesn't want to talk." He looked at his wife, his eyes cold and hard. "She's forgotten one thing. We know where she really lives. We know where Tom's apartment is." Mary's eyes went wide. They had only been to Tom's new apartment once, just to help him move a sofa. But they had the address. Jess had no idea they knew. "Get in the car, Mary," Frank said, grabbing his keys from the bowl by the door. "What are we going to do?" Mary asked, her voice trembling. "What are we going to say?" Frank opened the car door for her. "We're going to get our money," he said, his voice flat. "All of it. And we are going to get some answers." The 20-minute drive to the new apartment complex felt like an hour. Mary just stared out the window, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. Frank just gripped the steering wheel, his jaw tight. They pulled into the fancy apartment building. It had a big, bubbling fountain out front and brand new cars in the parking lot. This was not a place for someone who was struggling. This was not a place for someone who needed money for a broken-down car. Frank looked at the building, and his anger grew hotter. He wondered about this new boyfriend, Tom. Was he in on it? Was he part of this plan to steal from their family? Or was he just another person being lied to by Jess? They found the apartment. Number 305. Frank raised his hand to knock, but Mary grabbed his arm. She put a finger to her lips. They could hear sounds from inside. Laughter. And music. Sounded like a party. Mary felt like she was going to be sick. Her daughter was in there, laughing, while her sister had been crying for weeks. Frank didn't knock. He pounded on the door. He made a fist and hit the wood with a boom. Boom. Boom that echoed down the empty hallway. The music inside stopped. The laughter stopped. Everything went silent. They heard footsteps. The door opened a little bit. A young man with messy brown hair looked out. It was Tom. He looked confused and a little scared. "Mr. and Mrs. What are you doing here?" He was holding a red plastic cup. "Where is she, Tom?" Frank asked. His voice was so low and quiet it was scarier than a yell. "Where is Jess?" Tom's eyes got big. She's right here. We're just, hanging out. Is everything okay?" He didn't get to finish his sentence. Frank pushed the door open and they both stepped inside. And there she was. She was sitting on a big new gray sofa, holding a red cup just like Tom's. She was wearing a t-shirt, but underneath, they could see the yellow straps of the bikini from the boat picture. When she saw her parents standing in the doorway, all the color left her face. She looked like a small animal caught in a trap. Her eyes darted from her mom to her dad. The party was over. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here? What are we doing here?" Mary's voice was a high, shaking whisper. "What are you doing, Jess? Sarah thought you were homeless. We thought your car was broken. And you're here, having a party." Tom looked at Jess, his face a mask of confusion. "Homeless? What is she talking about?" But Jess just stared at her parents, her face completely blank. The money, Jess, Frank said, taking one step closer. The $2,000 for the car. And Sarah's $1,500. We want it back. We want it all back. Now. Jess looked at her father. She looked at her mother. She looked at her very, very confused boyfriend. The lie was too big. She was trapped. She had nowhere to run. Sarah was gone. Her parents were here. The game was over. Jess's face, once pale with shock, suddenly changed. The fear disappeared. It was replaced by something hard. Something cold. She stood up from the sofa, her chin high. No, she said, her voice clear and loud. I'm not giving you anything. You gave me that money. It was a gift. Frank and Mary just stared. The word no hung in the air, sharp and cold like a piece of broken glass. It was so bold, so different from the crying, panicked girl on the phone, that it took them a second to even understand. A gift. Mary stammered, her voice a tiny whisper. A gift. We gave you $2,000 for a car engine. Sarah gave you $1,500 to save you from being homeless. Mary's voice started to rise, cracking with disbelief. Those aren't gifts, Jessica. Those are lies. Jess just crossed her arms, her face hard as stone. You offered, Jess sneered, her eyes glittering with a strange, cold light. Sarah offered. You all have so much money and I have nothing. You don't know how hard it is. She glanced at Tom as if looking for support. I got a promotion. I deserved something nice. You owe me. All those years you paid for Sarah's college and I had to work. I'm just taking what's mine. This was a new, ugly side of Jess they had never seen. This wasn't their daughter. This was a stranger. And the lie about Sarah's college. Sarah had worked 2 jobs to pay for it herself. Frank took one step forward. He was not a big man, but suddenly he seemed to fill the entire room. He didn't yell. He didn't shout. He just spoke, his voice low and rumbling like distant thunder. What did you just say? He asked. The quietness was terrifying. Tom, the boyfriend, visibly shrank back toward the kitchen. Jess, Frank said, you took your sister's last dollar. She was eating noodles so you could go on a boat. You lied to our faces. You lied about everything. He held up his phone. Now, where is the money? Jess. Tom's voice was shaky. He finally looked at her. What are they talking about? You told me your sister gave you that money for your promotion. You told me your parents gave you money for a down payment on a new car, not a broken engine. Jess's eyes flashed with panic. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected them all to be in the same room. Tom, baby, they're just old and confused. They're trying to control me again, she said, trying to grab his hand. But Tom pulled away. He looked sick. Control you? Tom repeated, his voice getting louder. My God. The boat. That was her money. The new TV in your bedroom. Was that their money? He pointed at Frank and Mary. You told me you saved up for all that. Tom looked at Frank, then at Mary, and his face crumpled. He wasn't a liar. He was just a normal guy who had fallen for a story. He looked at Jess with new eyes. You used me. You used them. He suddenly ran to the bedroom and came back out holding a wallet. Here, Tom said, his hands shaking as he pulled cash out of his wallet. This is all I have. It's $600. It's my rent money, but I don't care. Please take it. He shoved the cash into Frank's hand. I didn't know, I swear. She bought all this stuff. I thought she was doing so well at her job. Jess let out a scream. Tom, what are you doing? That's our money. Frank looked at the $600. It was a start, but it was only $600. And it wasn't even from Jess. It was from her boyfriend. Give them the rest, Jess, Tom demanded, his face red with shame and anger. The boat, the new clothes, the TV. Take it all back. Give them their money. Jess looked at her parents. She looked at her boyfriend. Everyone in the room was against her. She was trapped. All the lies had piled up and built a cage around her. Her face twisted, not with sadness or regret, but with pure, hot anger. She knew she had lost. She had lost Tom. She had lost her family. And now she was going to lose the money. "You want the money," Jess screamed, her voice high and piercing. "You all care about is the money. You don't care about me." She ran to her purse, which was sitting on the kitchen counter. Frank thought she was going to get a credit card or maybe more cash. Mary thought she was finally going to do the right thing. But Jess didn't pull out a wallet. She pulled out her car keys. "You want your money," she shrieked. "Go get it." And with that she bolted. She shoved past her father, threw open the apartment door and ran. For a second nobody moved. They just stared at the empty doorway. The sound of Jess's footsteps pounding down the apartment hallway echoed back. "Jessica!" Frank roared, snapping out of his shock. He and Mary ran out the door after her. Tom was right behind them. They scrambled for the elevator, but the doors were closing. Jess had made it. They slammed the button for the next one, their hearts pounding. "She's going to the car," Frank panted. "The car we paid for." They didn't even know what kind of car it was. The elevator doors opened on the parking garage level. They ran out, their eyes scanning the rows of cars. "There!" Mary shouted. A small blue car was peeling out of a parking spot, its tires squealing. It wasn't a broken-down old car. It was a brand-new sports model. Jess was behind the wheel. She floored the gas pedal, heading for the exit. "Jess! Stop!" Frank yelled, running right into the middle of the lane. He stood there, his hands up, a father standing in front of a speeding car driven by his own daughter. Jess looked right at him. She didn't slow down. She sped up. Mary let out a scream that echoed off the concrete walls of the garage. It was a raw, animal sound of pure terror. She saw her husband standing like a statue, and her daughter's car speeding toward him like a bullet. Frank didn't move. He didn't even flinch. He just stared into the windshield. His eyes locked on his daughter's. For one terrible, heart-stopping second, Sarah's family was about to be destroyed forever. At the very last moment, with a violent squeal of tires, Jess yanked the wheel. The blue sports car swerved, missing Frank by inches. The car fishtailed, its back end almost hitting a concrete pillar. Jess corrected the turn and floored the gas pedal. The engine roared, a sound that was loud enough to be painful. The car shot out of the parking garage and disappeared into the bright afternoon sunlight. Frank, Mary, and Tom were left behind in the sudden, echoing silence. They just stood there, shaking. The smell of burnt rubber filled the air. Frank slowly lowered his arms. His face was white, but his eyes were burning with a cold fire they had never seen before. Mary crumpled. Her legs gave out, and she fell to her knees on the dirty garage floor, her body shaking with sobs. She tried to hit him," she cried, her voice muffled. "Frank, she would have." She couldn't finish the sentence. Tom just stared at the empty exit, his mouth open, his mind completely blank. He couldn't understand what had just happened. The girl he thought he knew, the one who kissed him goodbye that morning, was gone. In her place was a monster who would run down her own father. Frank walked over to his wife and gently pulled her to her feet. "It's okay, Mary." "I'm okay," he said, his voice hard. "Let's go back upstairs. This isn't over." He led his sobbing wife and the shell-shocked Tom back to the elevator. The ride up was silent, broken only by Mary's quiet cries. When they got back to apartment 305, it felt different. The party music was off. The red cups were still sitting on the counter. But the apartment felt empty, cold, and dirty. Felt like a crime scene. I had no idea," Tom started rambling, his hands twisting together. "I swear to you, Mr. and Mrs. Frank, I didn't know about any of it. The boat, the eviction. She lied to me too. She told me her family was so proud of her promotion." He walked over and picked up the $600 he had dropped. Please, take this. It's all I have, but it's yours. I don't want it. Frank looked at the money, then at Tom. He didn't take it. Instead, he walked past Tom into the middle of the living room. Frank wasn't just standing there. He was looking. His eyes scanned every inch of the room. He saw the new 70-inch television hanging on the wall. He saw the expensive-looking sound system underneath it. He saw shopping bags from high-end stores stuffed in the corner. She's been busy, Frank said, his voice flat. He walked over to a small desk by the window. It was messy, covered in mail and papers. He picked up a stack of receipts. Tom, Frank said, did you buy this television? Tom shook his head. No. She said she got it with her bonus. Frank flipped through the papers. They were all there. The receipt for the TV. $1,200. Receipts for clothes from stores Sarah couldn't even afford to window shop at. $800. A charge for the boat trip. $500. It was all there. All of their money spent on junk. And then he found it. Tucked under a pizza menu was a folded set of papers. It was the sales agreement for the blue sports car. Frank's eyes scanned the numbers. His blood ran cold. The down payment on the lease was $3,500. Oh my God, Mary whispered, looking over his shoulder. $3,500. It was the exact amount. Sarah's $1,500 and their $2,000. Every single penny. She hadn't just spent some of it. She had spent all of it in one place. She had used her sister's rent money and her parents' emergency money as a down payment on a car she couldn't afford. This wasn't just irresponsible. This was a plan. Cold, calculated plan. She had gathered all the money she could from all of them to get this one shiny, expensive thing. Just then, Frank's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. The name on the screen made his heart ache. It was Sarah. She must have been waiting by the phone, sick with worry. He looked at Mary, who was now just staring blankly at the wall, her face pale and empty. He looked at Tom, who was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands. And he looked at the receipts, the proof of how deep this rot went. He answered the call. Dad, what happened? Are you okay? Did you find her? Sarah's voice was fast and scared. Frank took a deep breath. Sarah. It's worse than we thought. Much worse. He told her everything. The new apartment. The lies about the car. The $3,500 down payment. He told her how Jess had screamed at them, how she had run. And then his voice broke. She almost ran me over, honey. She sped up. He heard Sarah gasp, then a sob. Dad. Oh my God. Is Mom okay? Frank looked at his wife. She's in shock. We're all in shock. But we're not done. His voice turned hard again. Mary, he said, turning to his wife. Call the police. Mary's hand, the one holding her phone, began to shake. The police. Frank, are you crazy? We can't call the police. That's our daughter. You'll ruin her life. She was pleading, her eyes wide with a new kind of panic. Frank's face didn't change. It was still a mask of cold, hard stone. Mary, he said, his voice flat and empty. She's not just our daughter anymore. She's a thief. She stole $3,500. And she just tried to run me over with a car. What if you were standing there? What if it was a child? She is a danger. Call them. Now. With a trembling finger, Mary dialed 911. Her voice was a broken whisper. My daughter, she sobbed into the phone. I need to report. She stole money from us. She just sped away in a blue sports car. The operator's calm voice on the other end asked questions that felt like slaps. Is she armed, ma'am? No. I don't think so. Did she threaten you? Mary looked at Frank, who was just staring at her. His eyes unblinking. Yes, Mary cried. She She almost ran my husband over. She tried to hit him with her car. Back in her own apartment, Sarah was still on the other line, listening to everything. "Dad," she whispered, her voice tiny. "The police. Are you sure? What are they going to do to her? Will they arrest her?" Frank's voice was heavy, like he was carrying a great weight. "They're going to find her, Sarah. That's what they're going to do. She's out of control. She has to be stopped." He hung up, leaving Sarah alone in her quiet apartment, staring at her phone. She had just wanted her rent money. Now her sister was a wanted person. Back in Tom's apartment, the silence was deafening. Tom, who had been frozen this whole time, suddenly spoke up. "Mr. and Mrs. Frank." His voice was shaky. "I have the lease papers. The one she left on the desk. The car's license plate number is on it. And the VIN number." He was trying to help, his face pale with guilt. He was just as much a victim as they were. He was the one who had to live here, in this apartment full of lies. He handed the papers to Frank. Frank took the papers, his hand steady. He was a man on a mission now. All the sadness was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp anger. He dialed the police again. "Yes, hello. My wife just called about our daughter, Jessica. We have the license plate number." He read the numbers off the paper. "It's a brand new blue car model. That's the one." He gave them the address to Tom's apartment. "We'll be waiting here." When he hung up, the air felt different. It was real. The hunt was on. The three of them were left alone in the apartment. Mary slowly sat down on the new gray sofa, the one Jess had bought with their money. She just stared at the blank 70-inch TV on the wall. Frank paced back and forth from the kitchen to the window like a caged lion. And Tom just sat on the floor, his head in his hands. Every time a siren sounded in the distance, they all tensed. Was that for Jess? Were they chasing her right now? The waiting was torture. Sarah, miles away, was also pacing. She called her best friend, crying, but she couldn't explain it. I think I just got my sister arrested." He felt sick. This was her fault. If she had just let the $1,500 go. If she hadn't made that first call to her mom. But then she remembered. The 29% interest. The lies. The boat. The way Jess had just erased her. No, she thought. This wasn't her fault. This was Jess's. But that didn't make the sick, guilty feeling go away. Mary started talking, but her voice was a hoarse whisper. "Frank. What if she gets in an accident?" She was driving so fast. She was so angry. Her eyes were wide with a new horror. What if she hurt someone else? What if the police? What if they have to chase her? Frank, what if she gets hurt? The terrible possibilities hung in the air, dark and heavy. They had called the police to save them from their daughter. But who was going to save their daughter from herself? Frank stopped pacing. He looked at his wife, her face a crumpled mess of tears and fear. He looked at Tom, who hadn't moved. "We can't just sit here," he said. His mind was working again, clicking into place. He looked at Tom. "This apartment lease, is it in her name or yours?" Tom looked up, his eyes red. It's mine. Oh, mine. She just moved in last month. She's not on the lease at all." Frank nodded, a grim, new plan forming in his mind. Just as he was about to speak, his phone rang. It wasn't Sarah. It was an unknown number. He answered it, his voice sharp. "Hello." He listened. His face, which had been so hard, suddenly went pale. Yes, this is Frank. Her father." He listened again, his eyes widening. You found it. Already. Where?" He gripped the counter. "Oh my God." He hung up the phone and looked at Mary. "That was the police. They found the car." Mary shot up from the sofa. "Is she okay?" Did they get her? Is she arrested? Frank just shook his head slowly. No, they just found the car. It was abandoned. And Mary? It's been wrecked. Wrecked. Mary's voice was a tiny, strangled sound. The words seemed to suck all the air out of the room. What do you mean wrecked? Is she? Frank, is she dead? The image of Jess, trapped in a mangled car, flashed in her mind. Her anger was instantly gone, replaced by a deep, dark mother's terror. No, Frank said quickly, his voice rough. She's not in it. That's the problem. Car is empty. She's gone. He ran a hand over his face. The police said it looks like she just drove it straight into a wall. Tom, who had been silent, finally spoke. Into a wall. Like, on purpose. Frank shook his head. They don't know. It's in an alley about 2 miles from here. It looks like she was driving too fast, tried to take a sharp turn and just lost control. The front end is completely smashed. The car is totaled. But the door was open and she's nowhere to be found. They all tried to picture it. Jess climbing out of a smoking, crumpled car and just running away. Where would she go? Mary started to cry again, but these were different tears. They weren't tears of anger. They were tears of guilt. We did this, Frank. We pushed her. We backed her into a corner and she ran. She looked at her husband, her eyes pleading. We called the police on our own daughter. Now she's out there hurt with no car and no one to call. What if she's lying in a ditch? What if she's bleeding? She was torturing herself with the possibilities, each one worse than the last. Frank's face was grim, but his anger hadn't faded. It had just mixed with fear. She made these choices, Mary. Not us, Frank said, his voice firm. Driving into a wall was her choice. Stealing was her choice. He turned to Tom. We need to go. The police are waiting for us at the alley. We need to see it. He looked at the young man, who seemed to be about 10 years older than he was just an hour ago. You should stay here, Tom. You've been through enough. Tom slowly stood up, shaking his head. No, I live here. This all started here. I need to see it. I need to know this is real. Frank had one more call to make. He dialed Sarah. She picked up on the first ring. Dad! Sarah, Frank said, his voice heavy. They found the car. It's wrecked. She crashed it into a wall. She's gone. He heard a sharp gasp on the other end. Then a small, broken sound. Gone. What do you mean gone? Like she ran away. Is she okay? Dad, what is happening? Sarah was crying now, completely terrified. I don't know, honey. We're going to the scene right now. I'll call you when I know more. He hung up before she could ask any more questions. The drive to the alley was the longest drive of their lives. It was only 2 miles, but it felt like 200. Every car that passed, Mary would jump, thinking it was Jess. When they pulled up, the flashing blue and red lights lit up the dark, narrow alley. It was a horrible sight. The pretty new blue sports car was crushed. Its front end was shoved into a brick wall, the hood crumpled up like a piece of tin foil. The airbags, white and puffy, were hanging out of the windows like sad ghosts. The driver's door was wide open, just as the police said. A young officer walked over to them. Mr. and Mrs. Yes, Frank said, his voice hoarse. That's us. The officer had a tired look on his face. Well, she's definitely gone. Must have hit the wall pretty hard, but the airbags saved her. We found some small blood drops on the airbag, so she's probably cut. Maybe a bloody nose or lip. But she was able to get out and run. Mary put her hand over her mouth. Her baby was hurt. Even just a little bit, she was hurt and she was alone. Frank and the officer talked. They discussed the lease, the insurance. It was a total loss. The car and all the money was gone forever. Tom just stood there, staring at the car he had almost co-signed for. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Mary, drawn by some horrible need, walked slowly toward the open car door. She needed to see where her daughter had been sitting. She looked inside at the deflated airbag at the cracked windshield. Then she saw it. On the passenger seat, half covered by the airbag, was Jess's purse. The one she had grabbed when she ran. It was turned upside down and it was empty. All the new clothes, the money, the cards. She must have grabbed everything in a panic and stuffed it in her pockets before she ran. Mary felt a wave of despair. Her daughter was truly gone. She reached in, her hand shaking, to pick up the empty purse. But as she touched it, she saw something else. Tucked into the side pocket, half hidden by a fold in the leather, was a small white piece of paper. It looked like a receipt. But it wasn't. She pulled it out. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely read it. It was a bus ticket. A one-way ticket bought earlier that day. It was scheduled to leave in 1 hour. Mary's eyes found the destination. And her blood, which she thought couldn't get any colder, turned to ice. She looked at Frank. Frank. What is this? He looked at the ticket. It wasn't to another city. It was to another country. Another country. Tom was the first to speak. His voice a hoarse whisper. The bus ticket felt heavier than a brick. It wasn't just a panicked run to the next town. This was an escape. Planned, international escape. Frank's eyes burned as he read the destination. A city just across the border. She was trying to disappear forever. It leaves in 1 hour, Frank said. His voice dangerously quiet. From the main downtown terminal. He looked at the police officer, who just shook his head. I'm sorry, sir, the officer said gently. She hasn't actually done anything with this ticket. We can't stop her. She hasn't broken that law yet. I can put out a bulletin, but you'll get to the station faster than we will. Frank didn't need to hear another word. He grabbed Mary's arm. Let's go. Tom, looking pale and lost, just followed them. They piled into Frank's car, the one they had driven to Tom's apartment hours ago, in what felt like another lifetime. The wrecked blue car, and all their money, was left behind in the dark alley. As Frank sped through the city streets, he dialed Sarah. She answered instantly. Dad, what's happening? We're going to the bus station, Sarah, Frank said, his voice tight as he ran a red light. She's trying to leave the country. She has a bus ticket. It leaves in less than an hour. Sarah let out a sound, a mix between a scream and a sob. Leave the country. Like forever. Dad, this is insane. Is she on her own? What is going on? She was completely falling apart, but her father's voice cut through her panic. I don't know, honey. We're going to stop her. Mary was silent in the passenger seat, not crying, just staring straight ahead. She looked broken. Frank, she whispered, her voice dead. What is she thinking? Starting a new life. With what money? She spent everything on that car. Frank gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. She must have more, he said, his mind racing. Or she's meeting someone. This whole thing. The promotion, the lies. It was all part of a bigger plan. A plan we were never supposed to see. Who was she meeting? How long had she been planning this? Back in her apartment, Sarah felt like she was going to throw up. She was pacing, her phone clutched in her hand. She felt so useless, so far away. I have to do something, she mumbled. She ran to her laptop and threw it open. The bus company. She'd go to the website. Frank had shouted the company's name at her before he hung up. She found the site. Manage my booking. She didn't have a password. But Frank. He had sent her a picture of the ticket. The confirmation code was right there. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Frank, Mary, and Tom burst through the glass doors of the bus terminal. It was huge, noisy, and confusing. People were sleeping on benches. Families were hauling luggage, and announcements echoed over the speakers. The bus. Which gate? Mary asked, her eyes darting around wildly. Frank looked at the picture of the ticket again. Gate 14. Gate 14. This way. He grabbed her hand and they started to run, pushing past people, ignoring the angry shouts. They were a strange sight, a desperate-looking family, running as if their lives depended on it. They rounded a corner and saw the sign. Gates 10 to 20. They were close. There. Gate 14. Tom pointed. A huge silver bus was parked at the gate, its engine humming. The sign above it read Tijuana. The doors were still open, but the driver was standing there, checking his watch. It leaves in 5 minutes. Frank panted. They scanned the small line of people waiting to board. Backpacker. An old woman. A young mother with a baby. She's not here, Mary whispered, her heart sinking with a strange mix of disappointment and relief. We missed her. Just as Mary spoke, Sarah's frantic voice screamed from Frank's phone. He'd answered it without even looking. Dad, you have to listen to me. Sarah, not now. We're at the gate. No, Dad. I'm in her booking. She bought the ticket 2 weeks ago. The words hit Frank like a physical blow. 2 weeks. That was before she called Sarah. That was before she called them. The eviction, the broken car. It was all a lie. A carefully built lie to steal the money she needed for an escape she had already planned. What? Frank whispered, stopping dead. He looked at Mary. She planned this all along. All of it. At that exact moment, the door to the terminal's women's restroom swung open. And out walked Jess. She had her hair pulled back under a baseball cap. She had a small, fresh bandage on her cheek. She was walking fast, her head down, carrying a new backpack. She didn't see them. She walked right past them and got in the back of the line for the bus. Frank, Mary, and Tom just froze, staring at her back. She was right there. After everything. After the lies, the theft, the car crash, the attempt on her father's life. She was just getting on a bus. She handed her passport to the driver. She was actually doing it. As the driver handed it back, she looked up, as if she felt their eyes on her. Her gaze swept the crowd, and then locked with her father's. For a second, her eyes widened. But she didn't look scared. She didn't look sorry. She looked annoyed. She turned her back on them and stepped up onto the bus. Frank roared, "Jessica!" And he lunged for the open door. Frank lunged, his hand grabbing the cold rubber-edged door of the bus. "Jessica!" he roared. The bus driver, a big man with a tired face, immediately put a hand on Frank's chest. "Whoa, sir. You can't get on this bus. You don't have a ticket." The driver was firm, but Frank was a father who had just been pushed too far. He was a man who had almost been run over by his own child. He shoved past the driver's arm and stormed onto the bus, his eyes wild. "That's my daughter," he yelled. "She's a thief." The few passengers on the bus all looked up, their eyes wide. Some of them pulled out their phones to record. Mary and Tom stumbled on right behind Frank, creating a blockage in the narrow aisle. "Frank, don't!" Mary cried. But Frank was already halfway down. He found her. Seat 12A right by the window. Jess was just sitting there. She had her new backpack on her lap. She wasn't even looking at him. She was calmly putting in a pair of earbuds, as if she was just waiting for her ride. "Jessica!" Frank's voice was low, and it was shaking with a rage that scared everyone on the bus. She slowly looked up, her eyes empty and cold. There was no fear. There was no sadness. There was just nothing. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice flat and bored. "You are making a scene. You're embarrassing me." Embarrassing her. The words hit Mary like a slap. "Embarrassing you," Frank repeated. His voice was so full of pain and anger that the bus driver was already on his radio, calling for security. "Where is the money, Jess?" Frank demanded. His hands were clenched into white-knuckled fists at his sides. "The $3,500 you stole from us. From your sister. Where is it?" Jess sighed, a long, annoyed sigh, as if her dad was asking her to do a chore. It's gone, she said, looking right into his eyes. I spent it. It's all gone. Car is gone. The money is gone. Now please get off the bus. I have to go. She turned her head and looked out the window, dismissing him. Sir, that's it. I'm calling the police. The bus driver shouted from the front. You have to get off this bus now. But Frank couldn't move. He just stared at the back of his daughter's head. This cold, hard stranger who had taken his child's place. This person was evil. He had never seen this before. He had never known this was inside her. He had failed. He had raised a monster. He felt his whole body go cold. Mary pushed past him. Her hands held out like she was approaching a scared animal. Jess, baby. Please, she begged, tears streaming down her face. Just, why? Why would you do this? We love you. Sarah loves you. Just, come home. We can fix this. For a second, Jess didn't move. Then she let out a small, cold laugh. She didn't even turn around. Love. You don't love me. You just want to control me. You always loved Sarah more. Now go away. Okay, folks, party's over. 2 large security guards were suddenly on the bus. They were big and they did not look happy. You 3, one of them said, pointing at Frank, Mary, and Tom. Off the bus. Now. They grabbed Frank's arm. Frank didn't fight. He was empty. He let them pull him. He had one last thing to say. You do this, Jessica. You get on this bus. And you are no longer our daughter. You're done. We're done. Do you understand me? This finally made her turn. She looked back, past her father, past her crying mother, past the ghost-white Tom. A small, cold, terrible smile played on her lips. I've been done for a long time, she whispered. Then, she did something that stopped Frank's heart. She reached into her backpack, the one she had bought with their money. He pulled out a passport. And then she pulled out another one. A different one. With a different name. And a different picture. It was a fake. She had been planning this for months. Maybe years. This is a betrayal that most of us can't even imagine. This wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. To have your own sister, your own daughter, lie to your face, steal your money, and plan to disappear forever. Have you ever felt a betrayal this deep? Do you think this family can ever heal from this? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if this story has shocked you, please like this video and share it with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe. Because the story isn't over. The guards were pulling Frank and Mary off the bus, onto the dirty curb of the bus station. Let's go. Now. The bus driver gave them one last angry look and climbed into his seat. The doors hissed shut. It was the loudest sound Frank had ever heard. It was the sound of his family breaking. He, Mary, and Tom just stood there, helpless, watching through the tinted glass. The bus engine roared to life. And as it started to pull away from the curb, Jess looked up. She looked right at them. And she waved. A small, mocking little wave. Then the bus turned the corner and she was gone.